Well, good evening to anybody who may be listening. I thought I'd start off with a short musical interlude. I'm not sure whether it will be allowed, because I kept it pretty short, and I'm showing the disc that was playing. I've no idea what it is, but I got it second hand from the record shop. I think it was second hand, and I really like it. It's quite short though. So I'm going to look out for more of this kind of music. Subliminal soul, is it called? I'm not sure. I don't know the music categories anymore. So the question was occurring to me, and it's occurred to me a few times, and I thought I might mention it. Why is it that awake conspiracy theorists, and I'm speaking of men here, why is it that they don't smoke? I suppose some of them do, but in the main, people have stopped smoking because it's viewed in a negative light. And of course, one of the reasons that it is viewed in a negative light is because we are told that it is tremendously, tremendously bad for you to do so, to smoke. But if we're conspiracy theorists, we have to understand that the very warnings pasted upon every cigarette packet are immediately suspect, because we are warned about things that are good for us in this life. That the people in charge don't have our interests at heart. So, for example, the lung damage caused by cigarette smoking, where you are shown pictures of blackened tissue compared to pristine pink tissue in an adjacent photograph. Apparently, in post-mortems, this isn't the case at all. And it's extremely difficult, in fact, except for a very heavy smoker, to identify which of the two was a smoker. It's not an exact science. So it seems that we might have been, that some trickery might be afoot, as it often is when narratives and media are involved. So that's, why don't people smoke more? It has beneficial sides to it. It's quite relaxing. It's mentally stimulating. It's a pleasurable thing to do. And there's a huge choice of different tobaccos that one can use. I'm not saying you have to smoke or anything, but it just seems that, in the olden days, many people did smoke, and then suddenly they didn't. And it's really, to a large extent, on the heels of a government drive in that direction, I do believe. Of course, if you're an athlete and all the rest of it, I would understand. But, in the olden days, some of the top footballers were smokers. We can hardly believe it now. And I suppose modern sports fans would say that there's no comparison, but it kind of is, I think Maradona had quite an interesting lifestyle. Certainly George Best, the celebrity footballer in this country. But many sportsmen would smoke. It was just the order of the day. It's a thing that men did. A kind of a male bonding ceremony also, perhaps. I don't see it in the same way about women. But that's a prejudice, but it's based on some loose biblical reasoning. I don't like to see women smoking. It doesn't seem appropriate somehow to see women smoking in the street. But because smoking is kind of, it's a performative act when it's done in public. You're making a statement at the same time, you see. And you could articulate that statement in various different ways depending on your perspective, but it's a definite statement, particularly now when it's become somewhat uncommon. You could say, except among certain orders of society, what my anarcho-punk composer friend used to call the lower orders. He would always speak quite ironically in that way, and he would do it in public as well, to shock. So people would snigger. He was a clever fellow, a bit of a poet. Poets are dangerous, that's the problem. I think we've realized that now. They are wordsmiths. Anybody who puts pen to paper is a potential threat, unless they're standing, I guess, really well in the Word of God. That would be my approximation of it. But my biblical argument against women smoking, for example, would be that, that it's not a woman's place to be making statements in public. And I think a woman, if her husband is pleased that she should smoke, I can't see why she shouldn't smoke in the home as her husband would desire or not mind. But I don't think public consumption of cigarettes would be just womanly or feminine. And I love a woman. I think we need so much more of it. I've been quite indignant, really, over the past week or so, because it's finally dawned on me that this Islamic takeover of my country is not just a strong possibility. It's almost completed. It's inevitable, and the Ishmaelite is already triumphant. Sometimes rather publicly as well, in where I live, where the Islamic population is very high. And it's a totalitarian religion. It's not like our God. The God of Islam has no personality, must be obeyed blindly. Whereas the true one God, Moses actually made him change his mind. A man, on more than one occasion, if the Bible is true, and I believe it is. Moses protested, didn't he, when the Lord would have destroyed all the people, and pleaded for them, pleaded on our behalf. And any man can plead with God at this point. I think, of course, we're not all Moses, but Hezekiah pleaded with God and was listened to. And he was given 15 years of life. quite something when a fellow's got one foot in the grave. David, the Lord listens to his children. That's not the way that it is with Allah. Just simply absolute compliance is all that is necessary, because it's a false god, you see. It has no personality. Whereas the Bible patiently and carefully and with intricate complexity outlines somewhat the nature of the one true God. And it's a wonderful, wonderful thing to see. But my land is lost at this point, and I grieve for it greatly. And again, I have to lay the blame to some extent also with the women, because the operation is successful for the Ishmaelite, because 10 Ishmaelite women will probably produce 50 Ishmaelite children in the space of a generation, whereas 10 white women will maybe produce, I don't know, 6. So it's purely a question of demographics and the fact that our political system is based upon the insane idea of democracy, whereby the majority rule. So, when any population becomes powerful enough to command votes, and certainly the Ishmaelite can, and do it very effectively as well, because it is the left-wing party that supports them, of course, and so they always vote there, and they're reliable, and they are numerous, so they can have real political clout. Whereas what's happened now, the right-wing opposition has become fragmented, and many of my own brothers and sisters will continue to vote left anyway. And then the remaining options are so varied, and they're just splitting the vote. So there's no chance of a shift in power now. It's gone. They've already got enough people up and down the country. And of course, there are more pouring in and more coming of voting age every year. So the die has been cast, and the race has reached its end, really. Our race, demographically. And, so I'm blaming the women to some extent, yes, because of the 600,000 abortions in 2024, I think I read, maybe more. 70% of which among our people. And their unfaithfulness and their rejection of their husbands, because maybe their husband has had an affair or something like that, and their readiness to break up the family and then to use financial coercion to follow libidinous lifestyles. And their rejection also of many good men simply because they don't meet the necessary minimum criteria, the brutal application of this principle of, what do they call it now? Hypergamy. always trading up, as it were. But, ultimately it's just disobedience, it's disavowal of the father. This is what's happened among the women. It's not their husband that they've rejected, it's the father that they've rejected primarily. And it's led to such a terrible, terrible result. And this will be a threat also among the Ishmaelite, of course. As the women become more emancipated, they could indeed start to undermine the movement or the race indeed from the inside, which is why the religious authorities are so strict on their imposition of burqa and this kind of extremely restrictive ruling upon the women, because when that starts to slip, as has occurred, I think, in Iran, most notably, but Ashenden reckons it's happening also in Saudi Arabia. As the women become more emancipated, then the rigorous religious system starts to break down, because internal conflict then develops in families, and which can, as we have seen, have absolutely disastrous results. And in our case, it's led to the decimation of our people. And this must stop. Of course, men are responsible too. I'm not suggesting that it's all women's fault, but certainly they do bear quite a significant burden. And yet they have no shame. And any criticism or any mention of it, and they shout out for men to have vasectomies as their solution to the cruelty that's acted out upon these poor unborn children in the womb where they should be safe, and yet they're going to be killed. Many will be killed tomorrow. They're in the safest place in the world, and yet Satan will come in and take them and cut them off and kill them, and then take their cellular material and use it to extend the life of the indolent and wealthy, or perhaps just to smooth out the wrinkles on a tired cheek of some grand dame. The world is such a tragic place in many respects. But, maybe it could be improved by just lighting up a pipe. Why not? Or a cheroot. Or a roll-up. God bless this evening.